Hi everyone, my name is Nigel and I'm the author of Think Right. And I just heard that Think Right has sold out, and the press, SAIACS Press, has just sent this book for reprinting. And so that's really exciting for me as an author. Honestly, in the beginning I was wondering who will buy this book, but within 7 months the book has been sold, and I'm really happy for that. But rather than just celebrate and be happy about it, I want to address some criticisms that I received from this book, or received on this book. Not so much, because everybody has been very kind and supportive. In fact, I've received a lot of positive comments about the book. I've tested it out with some people. I've gone to some colleges and taught from this book. And most of the students have said very kind things about this work, and even some faculty have been very affirming that we need a book like this. But to be honest, no book is perfect, no resource is perfect, and so neither is this book perfect. And I just want to list out some of the criticisms that I've received, and then maybe a chance to defend in the sense of explain where I stand. And doesn't mean that the criticisms are not valid. They are valid because they're coming from real places. But just from an author's point of view, how would I defend myself or this work? So one of the criticisms that immediately come is that this is not very helpful for empirical research, for field research. And I have got 1 or 2 chapters that address field research issues, like what is field research, and also what is a question. But honestly, that is true. That's a very valid critique, that this book lacks guidance on empirical research. Now, I've explained in the beginning that that's not the purpose of this book. This book is for library research. It's for what we call traditional research. But that does not mean that empirical research is not important. And there are so many students in India who are doing empirical research, and even globally. This book does not address it enough. So that's true. That's a valid criticism. And so if you're doing empirical research, then this book may not be the best resource for you. It may give you some help, but there is much more for your research. So that's one criticism. The other criticism was that there were not enough examples. So when I give examples, there are examples that I give over here, but sometimes they feel, no, we would like more examples. We would like more explanations of what you mean. Like sometimes I'll just give a 1-sentence example or 2 sentences, one from one department, one from another. But a lot of times, some students felt, not a lot of times, a few students told me that it would help if there were more examples, more samples of what we could learn from. There is an entire section which has sample chapters and sample outlines. But when I'm explaining the concepts, when I'm explaining what is a problem, or when I'm explaining what is methodology or a thesis, or even what is plagiarism, sometimes I could give more examples. So that was another criticism, and that's valid. I do try to give examples, but I could have done a better job there. That's true. Another example is that this is too advanced for basic theological students. And I really apologize for that, but honestly, that's true, because the focus of this book is not the basic theological student. So if you're starting your theological journey, this book is not for you. And it's aimed at the MTH, which is like the MPhil level, and the PhD level. That's what this book is aimed for. So a lot of students who are excited to get a resource, who have been very supportive, who said, oh wow, an Indian book on Indian theological writing. But then they find that this book addresses a thesis or addresses some more advanced issues, and there's not much for the basic student. And I apologize for that, and I do think that we need something simpler. I do agree. So I was actually thinking, what if we did Think Right, the prequel? That would be pretty cool if we could do something like that, of what are some of the basic issues of writing and reading that we need to know before we address a book like this. But that's just if I had time, and if. But I do understand that this is very focused on MTH writers and readers, and And so therefore, it is a little difficult for, let's say, a student doing an MDiv, or definitely a student doing BTH. It's not that they can't get anything out of it, but it's not directed to them, so some of the material here is quite difficult. Now, another criticism that was actually quite tough for me to take was this is too difficult even for the MTH students. Now, this criticism came from a couple of faculty who looked at this book and said, no, we don't feel that we want to recommend this book because it is too high of a standard for us to recommend for our MTH students. And I was like, that for me hurt me a bit, because I was like, this is for MTH students, this is meant for them. So why do these teachers feel that this is too high for the MTH students? And one of the students who had a chat with, one of the teachers who had a chat with me and said that the examples here cannot be normative, cannot be made compulsory for our department because the expectations are too high. Some of our students still don't know English, that we would say, or some of the students don't understand methodology in the same way. In fact, that teacher even said, even I don't understand methodology that well. So to expect students to have a clarity about methodology and all that is a bit too much to expect. Now, while it did hurt, I understand where the criticism is coming from. And in some sense, it's a valid criticism. If you think of this book as giving a normative template for how MTH students should write. But this is not doing that. That's where maybe I should have clarified that more. But I'm not giving this book as a template for MTH students. This is not how MTH students should write. But this is how MTH students can understand what the expectations are. So if you see from a student point of view, not from a teacher point of view, students keep getting words and concepts by teachers, and that students sometimes don't know what the teachers mean. So the teacher will use the word methodology, but the students may not understand what methodology means. So what this book does is clarifies those terminologies and gives examples. And it says that the teachers could be meaning this or this or this. That's where it is a little complex. But it's not saying this is the only right way to understand a problem or understand how to write. But it is saying that when a teacher expects you to do critical thinking, for instance, this is what this teacher probably means. Your teacher, she could be saying, do this. But you may not understand what this is. So this book helps you to understand, even translate what a teacher is expecting. And what I have said, and what I truly believe, is that many teachers don't understand their concepts that well, which this my own friend, this teacher, had admitted that he himself did not understand methodology that well. So to expect students to be clear about it is unrealistic. But that doesn't stop teachers from using these words. So I find that sometimes teachers are not clear, or that sometimes teachers contradict. One teacher has a strong view about method or something or writing, and another teacher has another view. So what I do is that I basically survey the various views, and I say that as MTH students, we can be aware of the various expectations and use this book as a guide to help clarify with your teacher what they mean. So rather than being normative, rather than saying this book is, this is the guidebook of how you must write, this is a guidebook of how you can talk with your examiner, talk with your mentor, talk with your teacher and ask them, what do you expect? Do you expect this, this, or this? And that, I think, is a very empowering thing for a student. And that's why this book was written. It was written for MTH students to negotiate, to navigate a world that a lot of jargon is being thrown on them, on research methodology jargon, and so that they can understand what is being expected, this book is a guide for that. Now, if a teacher read this book well, they will see that that is what it is, but also they could use this book to clarify what they mean, and if it is something that is not represented in this book, then that's great, then that is another definition. But they could also use this book to clarify for the students that I don't mean this understanding of methodology, I mean this. And I think that students will be greatly helped for that. But that criticism is something that I feel like I want to defend myself from, that criticism that this is too hard for MTH students. But I feel that it is very relevant for MTH students if we look at this book as empowering them to ask questions. For PhD students, I really believe that this is more than ever, that this is a very crucial book. In fact, many students, PhD candidates, have been coming to me and saying, I need help with my work. And I've had no hesitation in recommending this book to them. Say, look, you probably know it, but these are basic understandings of advanced research that you should know. If you don't know, then this book is helpful for you. So that was just one defense of that. Okay. So there may be other criticisms of this book, I don't know, but these were the few main criticisms that came through. And like I said, this is not a perfect book, but this is a one-of-a-kind book. I find very few resources aimed at MTH level focused on theological research. And so this book is a rare commodity, especially written from an Indian South Asian context. So I do think that this is a good book to recommend. It's not perfect. And I do hope that you can criticize it further. Go ahead. If you want, you can send me your criticism. You can even comment it on this YouTube video. And just tell me, what are some of the problems of this book that can perhaps even help future writers and future, if somebody else wants to write a better book on research methodology for MTH students, you're more than welcome, and use this criticism that we receive so that we can do a better job in the future. Maybe there's a next edition coming up, maybe, I don't know, a few years later, where after listening to the criticism, we say, okay, maybe adding a few chapters or correcting or giving more explanations. Maybe that is what is needed. So please feel free to critique, criticize, evaluate this book. Send me the comments if you want, or let your teachers know that what you like or don't like about it. Feel free to even write to SAIACS Press and just tell them that, look, I don't like this book, change it, or this is what I don't like about it, so that we can just get the feedback and perhaps improve in the future. So thank you so much for those who took the time to evaluate and critique this book. Thank you so much for those who affirmed this book, who said this is actually very useful. And I'm really encouraged that this book has been selling really well, which is for me an affirmation that people do see a need for such a book. And I'm hoping that more of you will find use of it. It's not perfect, but I hope it will be useful for you. Okay, with that said, bye-bye. Oh, before I go, bye-bye. I do want to resurrect my help videos, these videos that I've been doing to help students to understand some concepts in this book. I've been really busy with my work, so not been able to do it. But my next video has to be on what is methodology part 2, which is one video I've been avoiding. So hopefully in the next week or coming 2 weeks, I may make another video on what is methodology, going through that chapter 8, and the second part of that video, what is methodology. Okay, if I do that, see you then. Okay, bye-bye.